Hey, folks, we are here to revisit our paper toward understanding the functions of peer influence, a summary and synthesis of recent empirical research by Lauerson and Veenstra. This was from the Journal of Research on Adolescents 2021. And we're here to dig into the details that I didn't give you last time. Seeking connections between the internet, void of authentic self understanding, and facades of conformity that have sprung forth, presented as unique personal identities via the previously adolescence based phenomenon of peer pressure, now contained at our fingertips every goddamn moment of the motherfucking day. In other words, we're asking, is the internet our new high school that we don't get to leave at 3 p.m.? How did the most emotionally immature among us, boomers, for example, take it as their opportunity to try again at a phase of life that they passed through long ago? Is this what has created the extreme personality options seen in 2025? And perhaps contributed toward the spiral of silence that has made the rest of us afraid to speak. So, my theory is that boomers, and plenty of others, but collectively speaking, boomers are a group to look at as far as ruining our world and, being very easy to point to for emotional immaturity. So let's say boomers were born in extremely traumatized times following World War II. This was passed on in their blood and by the harrowed people who raised them, people who were deeply traumatized and had zero tools other than just forging ahead to deal with it. Thus, boomers and the other emotionally crippled people in the population were not permitted to talk about their feelings, to have their own uniqueness, to stray from what society wanted from them. The silent generation, and any other traumatized generation that raised us, does not allow it. And did not allow it. So, generally speaking, they didn't really develop their own personal identities. CPTSD, lack of strong self go hand in hand. But in this case, boomers did what they were told, and it worked. The economy largely panned out for them. Working a 9 to 5 was the key to doing just fine in life, and traditional values meant follow what has been told. Do not reflect or slow down. Just do what you've been instructed. Meanwhile, because of a combination of everything I just said, they did not go figure their shit out in therapy or otherwise. They didn't really forge their own paths in life or go through the challenging process of critically examining the values that they were raised with. And they continued to have little in the way of authentic identity, relational, or emotional maturity because of it. But all that said, they, and plenty of others, landed themselves in the bored and blessed life status thanks to that aforementioned rather predictable economical growth of not yet late stage capitalism. And then the internet arrived. It exploded. And suddenly, they, boomers, and all the other unhealed, traumatized humans in the fucking world were given access to everyone else, every other mind and life on the planet, which, socially speaking, was like re-entering high school. Peers on peers with very little oversight or guidance and the opportunity to rapidly change self-image. They, and all of us, suddenly had the opportunity to redo their adolescence, to re-figure out who they were, to retry at popularity, to remake an identity for themselves. In a big way, to retry at life. And we wound up with a big bullying group identity built up of many individuals who think that they're fucking special because of it. Under the confines of ever-increasing peer pressure, whilst not working out abusive daddy issues, the group identity grew ever more extreme, built on the backs of individuals becoming more extreme themselves, thanks to the prompting of that crowd of extremity. And this phenomenon has been choking out the voices of all the other classmen ever since. Or so it is my assertion. Let's look at this paper again today for more uncanny details to see if it tracks, if it seems valid. Getting back to Lauerson and Veenstra, they also said, building on the observation that adolescents are preoccupied with an imaginary audience, scholars have hypothesized a developmental period marked by hypersensitivity to peer social judgments. A consequence may be that perspective-taking cues activate regions of the brain that are especially attuned to peer input. Self-conscious emotions elicited by peer attention and brain activity linked to social responsiveness peak in mid-adolescence. So let's think about that. The internet is a real imaginary audience, isn't it? You actually can be monitored by everyone all the time, including people you do and don't know who want an anonymous punching bag. So that fear that many of us carry in adolescence has kind of been made a reality. Has this re-sparked self-consciousness? I think most of us would say yes. Please refer to that episode on rejection-sensitive dysphoria as it overlaps with the internet. I believe it was titled The Gen Z Stare. Has this possibly caused our brains to be self-conscious at adolescent levels? Perhaps also yes. And it doesn't help that we were all thrown into this pool together without any swimming training. They continue. Structural changes in school. Children move from a predictable world where most of their time is spent in small, familiar groups that are closely monitored to large, impersonal, uncertain worlds populated by unfamiliar peers with diffuse adult supervision. Susceptibility to peer influence is an adaptive consequence of the structural changes that characterize adolescence. Adolescents quickly learn to rely on close peers for companionship, protection, and guidance as they navigate novel contexts where norms are established and enforced by peers. Afraid of the social consequences of nonconformity, most conclude that the best way to get along is to go along. One might say, same, about all of the doors that tech has opened. Mom and dad ain't here. There's no oversight committee or teacher in sight. Just every individual suddenly exposed to every other individual without any solid structuring, which means a mind has had to start basing its behaviors off of social cues from those peers to figure out what it's supposed to do, just like hitting rewind and returning to middle and or high school. That means identity development and de-identification. De-identification describes a process whereby adolescents seek to establish unique identities through behaviors and attitudes that set them apart from parents. Read. The internet provided a way to re-examine or entirely ditch the assumed values and identities that were inauthentically acquired through upbringing. Peer relationships provide a safe space for experimentation, including trying and discarding different identities. New identities can be forged by befriending someone known for the characteristics to which one aspires and adopting those attributes. For most young adolescents, friends are the obvious choice. Now, traumatized individuals may be forced to maintain a particular personality or role in their real life, but they might find that the web sets them free. So, in striving to create a new identity, freed from the shackles of how one's family, old friends, work associates, and neighbors assess them, people seek clues from friends and peers and mimic those behaviors. And keep in mind that Facebook made friends a very loosey-goosey term a long time ago now, as it created a whole new landscape to comprehend. Findings from experimental studies indicate that peer influence is greatest when adolescents are confronted with unfamiliar tasks that have uncertain outcomes. As adolescents grow more secure in their identities and become more settled in their tastes, peer influence should decline. Right. So as we get older, we should grow out of this stage. But again, the unexplored territory of the internet serves as an unfamiliar place with unfamiliar rules that keep changing. Imagine living 50 years, unable to have your own unique identity, and then stumbling into the internet where the options are limitless, where there are no rules for conduct. It's a wild west. it may have brought our minds back in time to be more sensitive to that peer influence again. And it all sounds related, to me, to this next point: autonomy and the maturity gap. The disconnect between biological and social maturity, known as the maturity gap, creates a specific form of adolescence limited conformity pressure. Deviant peers signal their autonomy by displaying behaviors reserved for adults and by acting in ways that are contrary to adult authority. Doing so boosts their status with peers. Fearing a loss of prestige, high status individuals respond by mimicking behaviors that signal maturity. Lower status individuals follow suit. Okay, so now in our modern times, given these tools to engage with everyone on the planet, but not necessarily the social skills to do it healthily, the internet has created an environment of trying to prove oneself, to stand out, and yet also to fit in safely, acting in ways contrary to adult supervision that signal maturity as understood by the emotional children. Well, it sure sounds a lot like this presidency and its fanboys to me. A parade of assholes mimicking those behaviors like troublemakers on the back of the bus, trying to show everyone else how to be cool based on what wisdoms Elky Dad has passed along. But no one realizes what they're really being influenced by. Generations of unhealed individuals pretending to be adults while their fingers fly faster than their brains ever could. And they don't have much choice in the matter either, because human brains are wired to flock together. The primacy of peers in adolescent culture. The consequences of rejection and exclusion from the peer group are severe. Experiments and self-reports agree that peer rejection increases depressed mood. Isolation from the peer group anticipates loneliness and diminished self-esteem, which also fosters anxiety and depression. Most adolescents recognize that friends are required to successfully navigate peer culture. Friends are particularly important to those whose undesirable characteristics place them at risk for victimization. Again, remember that friends has become a very loose internet term. Now, our minds don't let us not worry about what others are doing, especially during times of rapid transition. We innately adopt their behaviors when we see that those behaviors work well. It's not a conscious process. And also, is it possible that seeing people get attacked in comment sections may reiterate the point? Don't explore this place, the internet, alone. Stay likable, stay within a chosen pack, and be protected. Or else here is the consequence: internet humiliation across the planet. So stay in line with the overarching narrative, even adopting the suggested beliefs within, and then you're automatically aligned with, quote, friends as a method of self-defense. This next section also suggests the answer is yes, that is possible. Similarity and compatibility reduce the threat of friendship dissolution and peer group exclusion. Differences are a primary source of disagreement between friends because they threaten to undermine compatibility. Whenever there is conflict, there is the potential for negative affect, which is highly disruptive to ongoing social interactions. For this reason, adolescents take great pains to avoid coercive conflict interchanges. Winning an argument may mean risking a friendship. For that reason, it is often better to concede or negotiate and minimize differences than prevail and lose a friend. Dissatisfied friends become former friends, replaced by companions who are more compatible. To avoid this eventuality, adolescents strive to minimize differences, encourage compatibility, and strengthen investments in the relationship. Okay, so when a new identity has been forged through peer suggestion and creating fake internet friends, it then has to be maintained. As the group think gets more extreme or takes an unexpected turn, for the individual, there has to be a direct compromise of values or purposeful ignorance of the values that one is passively still aligning with in order to maintain similarity. So, even if one encounters information that they don't agree with on the internet, provided by their chosen community, they might choose to either ignore that information or to change their opinion so the new data isn't a problem, all in the name of maintaining cohesion within the friendships, which could help explain how seemingly decent folks simply overlook the atrocious things that their friends and leaders say online and realign themselves with those statements. And similarity is a really big deal when contact with those peers is constant, or maybe even more important and consistent than other previously life-defining relationships, something that is brand new to our century. They say identity maintenance models. Compared to other age periods, adolescents have more incentive and greater opportunity to maximize compatibility by enhancing similarity. Adult friendships are often subordinate to romantic, family, and employment obligations. Friend influence may be ineffectual in the face of countervailing relationship pressures. Once settled, adults may become more tolerant of differences between friends because options for friends decline with age, and because adult contact with friends is limited to and structured around areas where similarities are maintained. In contrast, adolescents prioritize friendships and enjoy considerable latitude in their selection and maintenance. ... Until the internet changed so much of what I just said, opening up relational horizons, making online relationships important as and inextricable from romantic, family, and employment obligations, decreasing likelihood of settling into an environment to increase tolerance for differences within, creating never-ending options for friends and contact with them. Obviously, things have changed because the internet has become the new life. Appearing the same, then, continues to be a priority long after adolescence has ended, except for the human conundrum that they describe next. No one wants to be perceived as unoriginal. Optimal distinctiveness theory holds that individuals seek balanced self-views, integrated into a cohesive group of like-minded others, but different in ways that highlight a unique individual identity. Thus, optimal distinctiveness theory proffers insight into domains where conformity is expected. Conformity pressures should be strong in areas that touch upon the group identity. Distinctiveness is tolerated when it does not conflict with the priorities of the group and the image it seeks to project. Meaning, now, online, we can belong to so many groups, perhaps each under the umbrella of some shared values. In each, there's pressure to be the same. And yet, egos also insist that we feel special, but not too special, which could upset said groups. So we end up with a conform, but take it to the next level strategy. You can imagine entering into a new clique, learning what the rules are, adopting them, and then altering them slightly to be different. Then finding another group that's mostly similar, or recognizing that the existing group has changed, and starting that process again, each time becoming a little more conformist and also a little more extreme in that conformity, being the most conformist of the conformers to demonstrate individuality, pushing the limits of the interrelated social networks over and over again to maintain one's distinct identity. It all makes sense, especially when considering this next point. Understanding voluntary affiliations. Interactions between friends often take place in private settings. Secrets and opinions are shared, and the behaviors observed are not intended for public consumption. For friends, influence enhances compatibility and intimacy, which boosts felt security and confidence in the continuity of the relationship. For group members, influence enhances compatibility and uniformity, creating a hierarchy with mechanisms of enforcement that facilitate order, smooth functioning, and effective mobilization and organization. Cliques are interconnected friend dyads. Also voluntary, they may contain associations that require an individual to affiliate with a third party in order to maintain a shared friendship. Thus, friends seek inner state, attitude, and value similarity because it fosters closeness, whereas groups pursue observable behavior similarity because it promotes cohesion. Okay, So, friendships have one purpose: closeness, intimacy, comfort. Group friendships have another purpose: effective mobilization and organization. Also, applying this to modern living, when almost nothing is private anymore and almost every interaction is up for scrutiny from a clique, if not being part of the discourse of the clique directly, there are few truly one-on-one friendships to have. Even private conversations are one screenshot away from being shuttled into a crowd, which might be upset that their organization and ability to mobilize are being called into question. So, these days, it's all about presenting cohesive behaviors to satiate the group, whether those actions and values are authentic or not. And, as they said, that might require affiliation with a third party to maintain a friendship, to maintain positive standing in the group. A third party like, I don't know, a political party, or a religion, or a particular public figure, or all three when they become one and the same. To stay friends and stay within the group, it might be necessary to align with an impersonal third party and show it demonstrably in a similar and yet unique, aren't I so fucking special way. Now, that really does sound like the dumpster fire of the internet to me. And it speaks to this final point of the paper. Who do we choose as third-party affiliations to be influenced by? How does a mind decide what identity to conform with? Understanding the need for status. All things being equal, popular peers are more influential than average peers. Popular adolescents have access to rewards that are not available to others, such as admiration, inclusion in exclusive social events, and favorable resource allocation. The power of status attracts others. Lower status adolescents who gain the favor of a popular individual see their own popularity increase, a process referred to as basking in the reflected glory. In this way, popular adolescents attract peers who are willing to emulate their behavior in order to receive the rewards of enhanced status. Popular adolescents utilize an array of strategies to attract and influence peers. Some bully to maintain popularity, identifying new victims across the school year to increase visibility. Others take a positive route. In classrooms where popular peers are aggressive, classmates increase their aggression. In classrooms where popular peers are pro-social, classmates increase their pro-sociality. Do I need to say anything? Some popular people are bullies, encouraging others to be aggressive and predatory through demonstrating that it reaps rewards. This sets up the conforming template for the individual. In copying those behaviors, the less popular person, now affiliating with the third-party clique influencer, innately receives reward. Through direct reinforcement from that popular figure? Probably not. Maybe. But more unquestionably, if done correctly, through being accepted by the group that's united under the umbrella of that popular figure, through peer pressure and conformity, they are rewarded. So the popular figure is popular due to the way that a group treats them. This then encourages the group to behave similarly, so they all approve of each other. This enhances the sense of popularity for everyone involved in a bit of a circle jerk manner. This also feeds back and strengthens the influence of the leading figure once more. And considering how that might be playing out in our world, I think that's a good place to wrap and have a little conversation that pulls this whole discussion together. So I'm saying, from everything that we've discussed, the internet has sent peer influence on a path of continual increase, untethered from biological age. Exposed to a brand new world of socializing with no rules or oversight, peer pressure has blossomed and exploded for adults as much as adolescents. And because so much online activity is public or made public, because humans flock towards charismatic movers and shakers, because we all want to be similar and also a little bit spicy. But that goalpost keeps moving due to the prevailing and expanding cliques, creating ever more extreme behaviors that are acceptable enough for the group, while also giving them new examples of how to achieve a popular identity as every person on the planet vies for a unique personal brand among billions of others, with no oversight or idea how to do it authentically. We get this clusterfuck of peer influence that makes everyone inside the clique feel rather big in the britches, driving continually more extreme behavior within that both conforms to and ups the ante of the prevailing values and actions of that group. With very little authenticity, intimacy, or empathy required, this plays out because there's less and less demand to prioritize the difficulties of maintaining one-on-one private interactions. As these like-minded groups continue to rise up, advertising themselves as safe harbors for all the individuals who were thrown into this mass group dynamic, unequipped for the workings of it. The importance of individual friendships and maintaining them with any integrity has declined. Instead, we align with bullies, and in a way, they have become our new fake friends in the absence of real friends. Through false parasocial relationships with them, we become similar. We then look for signs about what is acceptable and what's a step further towards establishing a unique identity within that clique that has now become our social world. We end up tightening and exacerbating the values and behaviors that have been modeled through nudging the dial, inch by inch, in the direction that our popular figures and peers have pointed. Talk about a spiral of silence. Here we have a spiral of inauthenticity, spurred by the positive regard of other fakers, following after whoever manages to get attention on the internet in a way that others can crudely mimic. So, what do you think? The internet has sent peer influence on a path of continual increase, untethered from biological age. Perhaps the whole thing has created a pipeline of deepening, peer-influenced assholery, akin to the worst of what we went through as teenagers. And perhaps that helps to explain the childlike, disconcerting, embarrassing personalities that have been taking over the country and the international net. Or perhaps that's just the hypothesis of an outlier looking in on a clique that they don't belong to. You tell me. And we'll meet here again next time to talk about the piece that I left out today, where algorithms come into all of this. I'll see ya in a few days when we have a smaller conversation on that. And until then, take care. Be you. Prioritize your real motherfucking friendships. And cheers, y'all. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.